Hello there. It's your girl Valerie Mason Chase, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Marriage Beyond the Breach podcast. I think these are called podcasts, but whatever. I don't know if podcast is just where you have only the speaking part or you have the audio visual part, but whatever it is, I'm here. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'm going to say this on the front end this time because I always forget and end up saying it towards the end. If you have not already done so, I would greatly, greatly appreciate um, subscribing to the YouTube channel, sharing the video if you find it to be helpful for you or maybe for someone else. Oh, hey, Nicole. Hey, thank you for tuning in, sis. You are such a faithful viewer. I appreciate you so much. So, anywho, as you can see, I'm flying solo tonight. It's just me, myself, and I. I don't have any other guests on. As they say in church, it's just me and Jesus on here tonight. So I want to encourage you to be as interactive as you can possibly be. If you have questions, if you have comments, um, just let me know. Just put it in the chat. So what are we talking about tonight? Tonight, we're going to be talking about. Oh, wait a minute. Is that my granddaughter, Naya? Hey, Nye. Oh, no, that's Adele. That's my daughter, not my granddaughter. Hey, boo boo, darling. Thank you, baby, for tuning in. She said, hey, Mamu. And I don't know why. I just thought it was my granddaughter. But we're going to be talking about something tonight that is known as performative healing. Performative healing. So, hey, Vicky, good to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, Jono. Thank you, guys, so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. And again, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So, we're going to be talking about performative healing. And, before we get into the meat of talking about performative healing, I just want to say a word about healing in general. And from my perspective, I truly believe that healing is a lifelong process. I don't think that it's a one and done. I don't think that we focus on a particular area of healing. Let's say you experience some childhood trauma and you go through counseling, you go through therapy to process through that particular trauma. Well, if you live long enough, there are going to be other situations in your life that arise that may require some attention in terms of going through the healing process. All of us, at some point, if we live long enough, we are going to experience grief. We're going to experience grief. It's inevitable if we live long enough. And grief is not just about the loss of a loved one, a loss of someone by death. It could be the loss of anything. It could be the loss of a job, loss of a home, loss of a relationship. As people get older, we experience a loss of mobility. I can't get around as well as I used to. We might experience a loss of some of our cognitive ability. As we get older, we may experience loss of friends. So there's all types of, hey, baby, my daughter-in-law, hey, Rico, thank you for tuning in, baby. I appreciate you. As we live our life, there will undoubtedly be many situations that arise that require that we go through the healing process. So I think it's a lifelong thing. I don't know that any of us can ever say that we are healed completely from every situation that we have ever faced because we don't know what we're going to face yet. So that's just my spiel, my belief, my philosophy when it comes to emotional healing. So, what is performative healing? Performative healing just refers to when there is an outward display of healing, or there might be some healing language that's used, but there's no corresponding internal processing that has taken place. There's no internal work that has been done. The person might appear to be healed, they may appear to be evolved, they could appear to be regulated kind of on the surface. When you dig deeper, um, you may find that there's something else that's going on, that the person is not really healed. Wait a minute, I see my cookie man just hit the link. You want to come on camera, baby? Is that why you did that? Or you just hit the link to join? I'm going to bring you on. That's not what you were, that wasn't your intention?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay. So now that you're here, you might as well say hello to the good folks that
Hey,
are watching.
y'all. I ain't here long.
Okay.
It's Sunday football. I don't get to watch my football too long, but I'll peek in. Maybe I'll say a comment or two. But you go ahead, baby. You don't need a side driver. You always talk about that anyway, right? You be trying to get rid of me, so now you got to go solo. I might peek in every now and then. Can't,
Okay. Okay, babe. Go back and watch your football. I am absolutely positively a football widow. Yes, I am a football widow. Let me just say, I am a all sports widow. It's not just football, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's hockey, it's all sorts of things. Hey, Dr. Heather. Hi. It's so good to see you, Dr. Heather. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, I was just talking about what performative healing is, where there's that outer display of healing, but there's no real inner work that's been done or no inner work that has been changed. And it's not necessarily something that is done deliberately. In most cases, it's not an attempt to be deceitful in any way. It's kind of an unconscious survival strategy. It's a coping mechanism, so to speak. And it's designed for security, for safety, for approval, and for a sense of belonging. So, at its core, performative healing answers this question: what do I need to look like in order to be accepted? As opposed to answering or asking the question, what do I actually need to feel, to process, or to integrate, so that there could be some real and authentic healing? So, how does this all come about? Because a lot of what occurs in our life has a root somewhere. So, what are some possible roots or causes of performative healing? And one is attachment trauma. I know we've spoken about attachment on this podcast on many occasions, but I just want to briefly talk about what attachment is so you'll have an understanding of what I'm talking about when I say attachment trauma. So attachment simply refers to the emotional bond that we form with our primary caregivers. And it's phrased as primary caregiver because it may not be a mother, it may not be a father. Primary caregiver could be an auntie, could be an uncle, could be a grandma, it could be a foster parent. So, whomever the primary caregiver was, the attachment will form with that particular individual. And that attachment that's formed, it kind of shapes how we experience safety, how we experience closeness and connection throughout the entirety of our life. So, and attachment is not about dependency, it's about felt security. Attachment is formed when in childhood through repeated interactions with that primary caregiver. So if you have a caregiver who is attentive, who is kind, who is loving, who is supportive, who is encouraging, you more than likely will end up with what's called a secure attachment. There are other attachment styles. There's anxious, there's avoidant, there's disorganized that might be a combination of the two. So, attachment trauma refers to if there is a primary caregiver who is inattentive, who is neglectful, who is abusive, who is insulting, who does not encourage you at all as you go through your childhood, your adolescence, and so forth. So when you experience that with your primary caregiver, then you could end up with what's known as attachment trauma. And attachment trauma results in someone who emotional needs, they feel that they feel it's unsafe when it comes to emotional connection. They may feel that approval has to be earned, that someone doesn't love them just for them, and it in some cases might even be transactional. When there is attachment trauma, an individual might believe that vulnerability could lead to rejection and abandonment. So, performative healing in that regard becomes a way to look functional in order to maintain connection. And whether that connection is with a primary caregiver, or it could be in a romantic relationship, it could be with a friendship, it could be on a job where performative healing occurs because you want that connection, whatever that connection is, and with whom you may have that connection and you want to keep it, because it could be painful sometimes when we have a strong desire for connection with someone, but we also fear that same connection. And as a result, we behave in a way that we are not necessarily our authentic selves. So that's where the performative aspect of performative healing will come about. Let's say you've experienced attachment trauma and you have an anxious attachment style, and you are in a romantic relationship and your anxious attachment style is causing chaos within the relationship. Your partner may say, hey, something, I see something is not right, something's going on with you. How about you get some counseling? And not for nothing, performative healing even shows up in the counseling room, especially someone who has had multiple instances of counseling, enough to learn the lingo. And they know, or they believe they know, what it is they need to say and how they need to behave and how they may need to show up in order to appear more healed than they really are. So when that individual goes in for counseling, and now they know the lingo, they come out of counseling and now they are putting on this act for their partner, who believes that real healing has taken place. But here's the thing about performative healing: there will always be something that shows up in our lives that lets us know we are not as healed as we think we are, or we are not as healed as we are pretending to be when it comes to uh, performative healing. And I got to tell you, your girl here, Valerie Renee Mason Chase, I hate to admit it, but there have been times in my life when I have engaged in performative healing, especially many years ago, in my marriage to the cookie man, in some church relationships. Because, I mean, who wants to show up at church and always want to be the one who's broken or the one who's breaking down? So in church, sometimes we will put on this air of having it all together, of being healed, of being delivered, and all of that good stuff, because sometimes that's the expectation. Um, and I don't know if you all have heard of some programs in some churches that have an attempt to pray the gay away, where they have a whole curriculum, so to speak, where they take individuals through, and the end goal is for this individual to no longer be gay. Now, I don't know what your understanding or your belief is about gayness, about homosexuality, or whatever. Okay. But since this is my program and this is me speaking, I'm going to speak from my perspective. I do not think that that is something that you can just pray the gay away. Now, are there individuals who don't act on their same sex urges? Yes, absolutely. But in some sense, and I have heard people who don't act on their urges say those urges are still there. So now, does that mean that you're no longer gay because you're no longer engaging in homosexual activities or acts? I don't know. Y'all can, come to your own conclusion about that. But however, I digressed a little bit. But in those programs, that's the goal. You're going to pray it away. The goal is to be delivered. So if you've gone through this process, at the end of it, you don't want to be the one to admit that you're still gay and you still hanging out and doing stuff that the church does not approve of. So in a sense, you're going to engage in some level of performative healing. You know, I've even seen in some churches where the men, is usually men, um, and not for nothing, because universally, people in general have more of an issue with gay men than they do gay women, but that's another separate issue altogether. But it's a man who will come up and say, "Yeah, I used to be gay, but I'm not gay no more." Bruh, for real? And he's standing up there looking like all he need is some pumps in the purse. But he feels compelled to do that because this is the environment that he's in and that is the expectation. And that is an example of performative healing. Okay, Jono had a question. Do you think there's any benefit to performative healing? Sometimes it may help to put on a strong front for the sake of getting along and moving on. And I'm going to say this, like any other coping mechanism, it works until it doesn't. It works until it doesn't. Yeah, we could engage in performative healing, but the realness is always going to show up somewhere, somehow. Whether it's a trigger, whether we come interact with someone, whether we interact with something, it works until it doesn't. And also in your question, you're saying for the sake of getting along and moving on. So I have to ask another question. Where would you be, or with whom would you be, that would require you to pretend to be a certain something in order to get along either with them or in the situation? Yes, John, there could be some short term benefits, and I use the term benefits lightly because I think it is, and again, this is just my perspective, I think it is emotionally injurious to us when we are not authentically ourselves. Now, Sadell had a question, but there's only so long you can keep up the smoke and mirrors before it all comes to the surface. You're absolutely right. And that's just what I was kind of referring to. Because even the best pretender who is not authentically themselves, at some point, the mask is going to come down. And someone is going to see who you really are and realize that you are not as healed as you are pretending to be. And I hate to say pretense because not all performative healing is that intentional. Some of it is really self-conscious, not self-conscious, subconscious. And it's with any other coping mechanism. Coping mechanisms are subconscious. Yeah, you're right, Vicky. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're not being true. Not only are you not being true to yourself, you're not being true to the people that you're connected with. because they will have one view of you, and people, for the most part, will interact with us and treat us based on how we present. So if we are presenting as healed, if we are presenting as someone who's got it all together, your poop don't stink, that's how people are going to interact with you. And I can tell you something that happens a lot with performative healing. And this happens, I believe, more with women than with men. When we give this image of having it all together, we are the doer, we are the cleaner upper in our family and our relationships, and we're bearing the weight of other people's emotional dysfunction because we are the strong one. But eventually that back is going to break down. And what happens sometimes, there will inevitably be a level of resentment that is experienced, because then you say, hey, well, what about me? I have needs too. Well, guess what? You've never expressed those needs. You've always given the impression that you're strong, you got it all together. You're here, you're there, you're here, you're there, you're this one. Boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, boom, boom. So that is now the expectation that people have of you. So we absolutely do ourselves a disservice. And I think we do a disservice of the people that we are close with and connected to, because we rob them of an opportunity to be a blessing in our lives and to help to absorb some of the over functioning that we engage in. They don't have an opportunity to do that, because sometimes when a person, a loved one, a friend, or family member may want to step in, we say, oh, no, 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 that's all right. I got it. I got it. Been there, done that. And I am, I am seriously trying not to do that any longer. Part of it is because I'm a control freak. And part of it also is that performative healing piece. Because I don't think anyone wants to be perceived as needy, even though I don't think, no, let me rephrase that. There is nothing wrong with having needs and expressing them, especially to the people that you are close to and connected with and who claim to love you. If you love me and I have a need, it should be okay for me to express that, whatever that need might be. So, another way, another possible root cause of performative healing is when, there's a level of childhood conditioning, such as being parentified. Okay, what does that mean, Valerie, to be parentified? That means that a child takes on roles and responsibilities that they are not either chronologically, emotionally, or psychologically prepared for. It's not their job. It's the parent's job, but then the parent puts that onto the child, and now the child is parentified. Let's say there is a family of 8 children, and now the oldest one might be 13, and the youngest might be, you got a 6 month old, and you got a year and a half old, and then you got a 4 year old. And now this teenager now is expected to take on the responsibility of essentially raising these kids. That's being parentified. It's not that child's job. She's not their mother. Now, can a child assist and help to facilitate some care? Absolutely. But when it is expected to be that child's sole responsibility because mama's overwhelmed with all the other 4 children, that's not fair. That child is not parentified. I mean, that child is now parentified. Another way a child could be parentified, if a young child is expected to go out and get a job and earn money at a young age and provide it to the household. That's another way to be parentified, because that is a parental role. Provider is a parental role. Provider is not a child's role. So when a child grows up in a way that he or she has been parentified, what happens later on in life is they um, they will get praised only for their maturity. They won't necessarily get praised for other things. They perform emotional competence without having received it. They perform emotional competence without having received it. They're not competent, or how can I phrase this? They believe that they lack competence, and in some cases, they do because they've been so parentified, and now that is the expectation. But what about competency in other areas of your life other than being a caregiver there in the home? So you grow up and you perform emotional competence. Um, Church, I already talked about how that could be an environment where that's an environment that is ripe for performative healing. And I've kind of already talked about that. There could be a sort of shame based identity where someone might believe, well, if I'm still struggling, I must be failing. If I still feel pain, I must be broken. So then there's that attempt to outperform the shame with a visible transformation rather than an internal one. Now, not for nothing. Just because you're still struggling doesn't mean that you're failing. Just because you're still feeling pain doesn't mean that you're broken. Not at all. Not at all. Healing is a process. It is a process. It is a process. It is a process. It is not a one and done. It's not something that happens overnight. So just because you're still feeling some emotional pain from whatever it is that is the source of it doesn't mean at all that you're broken. And if you're still struggling, doesn't mean that you're failing. Hey, I believe all of us struggle with something. Some struggles just happen to be more visible than others. Some struggles just happen to be more acceptable than others. But I think that there, on some level, all of us are struggling with something because none of us is perfect. None of us has it all together. None of us gets it right 100% of the time. So there could be something that we are struggling with. Hold on, I just wanted to see. I saw a second person. Oh, that's still the cookie man, but he ain't trying to be on. Um, so and also someone could say, okay, well, I'm healed now. I don't go there anymore. I don't do that anymore. Um, I've forgiven them completely. And they said with a flat affect, yeah, I forgave them. But did you forgive too soon? I know that may sound kind of strange to church folk, but there is such a thing known as cheap forgiveness. And that means that you rush to forgive because you're engaged in this performative aspect of forgiveness because you want to move on. You don't want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with whatever the issue was that warranted forgiveness in the first place. So you just want to rush through it, get to the other side of it, or think you're on the other side of it and say, yeah, okay, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. But when it is a cheap forgiveness, there's always going to be something that comes up to clearly indicate you haven't really forgiven this person. And again, forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation because you can authentically forgive someone and no longer want them to be a part of your life or you be a part of theirs. So forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you say to someone that I forgive you, but then you still feel the urge or the need to get back at them. You want them to suffer. You want them to hurt. When authentic forgiveness has taken place, those things are gone. So if that's still coming up, then consider the possibility that you have engaged in some cheap forgiveness. Yeah, Dr. Heather says, I keep reminding myself that healing is a process. Yes, absolutely, Dr. Heather. And just as my t shirt says, healing is not linear. There's some ups and downs to this thing, there's some forward and back to this thing. It's not linear. You don't start on the process here and go straight across there without any obstructions, without any incidents, without any setbacks. That's not how healing works. Um, so, John is asking, do you think that therapy or counseling is necessary for one to be fully healed, as opposed to only to performatively healed? That's a great question. And as a counselor, I would say yes and no. The yes is counseling is a huge tool or method by which someone can uh, engage in authentically healing. However, someone also could be in a faith practice or a spiritual practice where there isn't the pressure or expectation of performative healing. And that person can have an authentic deliverance experience. I might have been joking about deliverance before, but I absolutely believe in deliverance. However, I don't believe in it the way that some people do. I believe in it the way that Pastor Darius Daniels has taught deliverance, and that is deliverance can be immediate or it can be incremental. So, is counseling necessary? Not always. Can it be a component? Absolutely. And even when there is divine intervention, depending upon the level of knowledge and expertise of the individual that someone is interacting with in their faith tradition, that person may still need some additional counseling as well. Because pastoral counseling, all pastoral counselors are not created equal. There are some pastoral counselors who stick strictly to biblical stuff. And then there are some pastoral counselors who have additional training and education and competencies where they can bring in the clinical as well as the spiritual. And from my perspective, that is the sweet spot for healing. When you can have the spiritual and the clinical together, baby, you are in a great place. So, yeah, John, I think there's room for counseling. I also think there's room for some divine intervention because I'm both. I'm a counselor and I am a woman of God. I'm a woman of faith. So for me, the two intertwine absolutely beautifully. So yeah, I hope that answers your questions. So, what might performative healing look like? What might be some emotional indicators? One would be having a very restricted emotional range. And by that, I mean, because, God created us to experience the full gamut, the full range of emotions. As far as I'm concerned, there's no negative emotion. I don't like that term negative emotion. There are some emotions that are uncomfortable. There are some emotions that don't necessarily present well. But again, this is me. I don't consider them to be negative emotions. So God created us to experience all of them. But when someone is engaging in performative healing, they'll have a very restricted emotional range. They may only experience happy or sad, joy or anger, with not much in between. And there's a whole lot of stuff in between happy and sad. There's a whole lot of stuff there. So when someone has that limited range, that sometimes shows up when the individual is practicing performative healing. Sometimes there is an and I want to say this word, what, incongruence. I hope I said that word right, between the words they speak and how they're showing up emotionally. There's also this thing known as cognitive dissonance, which means you believe one thing, but your behavior, you're acting completely antithetically to whatever you say that belief is. Cognitive dissonance. I mean, for instance, you could say, well, I believe you're a single person. I believe that we should not engage in sexual intercourse before marriage. But then you become the town punk. That's some cognitive dissonance right there. I know, again, that's an extreme example, but that is an example of it. Sidel says overuse of therapeutic language could be one. Yes, you're absolutely right, Sidel. Just saying phrases or words that you've heard because you think that you should, because you've heard it in the counseling room. And I'm going to tell you, I, more often than not, can discern when a client of mine is engaging in performative healing because they will use the language. Sometimes they use more therapeutic words than I do, but what they have going on in their life and how they are presenting both to me and to the world, it does not align with the words that they are using in terms of where they are in the healing process. Okay, John says, what about somebody who thinks they are fully healed and is unaware that they are simply performing? I think you just addressed this as I was typing. Yeah, cognitive dissonance is absolutely one way. And a good gauge of that, having people in your life who you trust to tell you the truth. Not a yes person, not somebody who's just going to tell you what you want to hear, but who you trust to tell you the truth. And if you have someone in your life that you can see that they're saying all the right things, they're uh, behaving on the surface in ways that indicate that they're healing. They're saying, you know what? I don't care about that man anymore. I'm over him. I'm completely over him. I am healed. I am healed. I am healed from that relationship. I am healed from that breakup. But every Friday night, they're calling you, bawling their eyes out over the same man or over the same woman, the same person. That's performative healing. So now you, as their friend, tell them the truth. Ask them some hard questions. Are you really over this guy? Are you really over this gal? Do you think you really have healed from that? Because, we're sitting here and you're crying in your vodka shot every other Saturday. So, yeah, someone may not know, Jono, that they are engaged in performative healing. And that's why it's so important for us to have those individuals in our life. Okay, for me, it's your Aunt Jackie. Aunt Jackie checks me on a regular. She checks me on a regular if there's something going on. So I trust her to tell me the truth. We all should have someone like that in our life who will tell us the truth, the hard truth, the uncomfortable truth, the ugly truth, no matter what. And that way, that kind of lessens, hopefully, the length of time that someone engages in performative healing because they have this person talking to them who can help them to maybe be more self reflective and ask themselves those hard questions after engaging in that conversation. Um, Someone who's engaging in performative healing has a great deal of difficulty tolerating conflict. They're not going to be able to tolerate conflict at all. They will talk about boundaries, but they will not enact or enforce a boundary. They'll say, oh, yeah, well, I'm setting a boundary. I'm setting a boundary. I'm not doing that anymore. So they use that language without fully understanding what a boundary is and how to go about setting one. Just me saying to my girlfriend or to Jackie, you know what, I'm setting a boundary, sis. I'm setting a boundary. So what does that mean? It really doesn't mean anything. Because unless it is clear, let's say, okay, I'm gonna give you an example. Boundary. You're in a relationship. Oh no, I'm gonna say on a job. Let's say you're on a job and you have a coworker, someone in the next cubicle, in the next office who comes around and they are insulting, they are demeaning, um, and it makes you very uncomfortable. It's uncalled for. This is the boundary. You say to them, listen, I don't appreciate you speaking to me that way. Um, and going forward, if it happens again, I'm going to report you to HR. Okay? You have identified what makes you uncomfortable. You have identified what the consequence is. Because a boundary without a consequence is not really a boundary. There's got to be a consequence at the end of it when a boundary is crossed. So just saying, yeah, I'm setting a boundary really doesn't mean anything. Okay? So some differences between performative healing and genuine healing. Performative healing sometimes is very fast. Someone will go to counseling, they'll be in there 2 or 3 weeks, they'll go to a few sessions, um, and then they come out and say, hey, I'm healed, that's it, and that's all. It's a wrap. Authentic, real healing that takes place on the inside. Wait a minute, do I have another message over here somewhere? I'm trying to see something. That's my cookie man. Bless his heart. He's sending. He put something. He thinks he put it in the chat, but he really sent it as a personal message to me. God bless him. Gotta love the man. So this is what he wrote, y'all. I can't put it. I don't think I can put this on screen, but this is what he wrote. Just figured out how to text message, and then he put only hurting themselves and with the real possibility of leading someone on. Yes, that's accurate. Then he said, are my texts being seen? Well, they are now, baby, because I went over to the private chat. So, anywho, that's my cookie man. He done made me lose my train of thought. He has that effect on me, y'all. What can I say? He gets me all discombobulated. But anywho, true authentic healing is gradual and takes time. As I've said repeatedly, it is a process. It's not a one and done. Um, Performative healing is very public. Sometimes, a lot of time, real authentic healing is extremely private. Um, we see a lot of what I believe is performative healing on social media. People who, and this is not to say that in order to be our authentic selves, we got to put all our business out in the street. No, not at all. But if you're going through something and you haven't really gone through the healing process, and then boom, all of a sudden you're saying, I'm over it, I'm healed, I'm moving on, that's it, it's a done deal, we run the risk of giving others the impression that this is what healing really looks like. And there are some people who are really fragile. And there are some people who are really want help and need help and they're looking for help. And some people turn to these content creators who lead them down a dangerous and erroneous path in thinking that it's a quick fix. Healing is not a quick fix. Emotional wound is no different than a physical wound. When you get a cut, does a cut heal right away? No. Listen, I had a blister on my back 3 weeks ago because I fell asleep with the heating pad on my neck. I fell asleep. I woke up with a blister. The blister popped. That was 3 weeks ago. It is now, just now, starting to look like it's healing. And that's something physical. And emotional wounds sometimes are far deeper than our physical wounds. And it takes time to heal from that. It takes time to go through that process where you can say, I am healing because you go through the process. And from my perspective, we don't have to get to the place where you are you believe you are completely healed in order to get to the end of counseling. But if you are going through the healing process and you have gained insight, if you have learned coping skills, if you have tools in your tool belt that you could utilize on your own as your healing process continues, yes, we can end the regular counseling process here, and you can have periodic check ins where something may come up. You might need to unpack. You might need to process through. It could be a new wound, emotional wound that has opened up that we now need to deal with. But we don't have to get to the point where you believe healed in order to get to that, the ending of regular counseling sessions. At least that's my perspective. I can't say that everybody agrees with that. I'm sure everybody doesn't. And guess what? That's cool. Different strokes for different folks. I already know I'm not the right fit for every single person who wants or needs counseling. And guess what? Every person who wants or needs counseling ain't the right fit for me. There have been some times when I said no. I've been presented and I've said no, depending on what the circumstances are, depending upon the age of the individual. And I mean, I don't discriminate against someone older. I just discriminate against children because I don't have the oil for that. I do not have the oil to counsel children. It's just not there. And I think that being able to admit and acknowledge what you're not good at and what you're not a good fit for is as important, if not even more so, than being able and willing to acknowledge what we are good at. Um, so I just want to check my notes to see where we are. We talked about social media. We talked about some clinical indicators for individuals. So what about clinical indicators for us counselors? What might we look for in the counseling room? And we did say using extensive therapy language early, early in treatment, not later on, not after a few months, not after we've spent some time together, but early in the counseling process using excessive therapy language. Minimizing the effect while also reporting severe trauma. And you're minimizing it because you know what? I'm over that. I'm healed from that. We don't need to talk about that. It's a done deal. I can recall one time when many years ago, it had to be at least 30 years ago, the Cookie Man and I went for couples counseling. And listen, my goal for going to counseling was for the counselor to fix him. Okay, because as far as I was concerned, he was a problem. I ain't had none. And we sat in front of the counselor, and I don't remember what I said. I cannot remember what I said, but the counselor looked at me and asked me, had I ever been molested as a child? Yeah, but that ain't got nothing to do with this. I'm not here to talk about that. And guess what? We didn't talk about it because I refused to go back. Now, granted, that was 30 years ago. I wasn't ready to deal with that then. I thought that I was okay. But my unhealedness if that's a word, I don't know. But my unhealedness from that sexual trauma was wreaking havoc in my marriage. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to deal with it. But I was acting like everything was hunky dory and there was nothing wrong with me, but there was everything wrong with him. So, minimizing effects of traumatic experiences. There might be this shift, a quick shift from before and after. The person on let's say July 4th, all busted up, all broken down. July 21st, hey, they happen, they're skipping and they everything is la di da. Before and after, a quick shift from before and after. So, what do we do as counselors in order to help people who may be engaged in performative healing? One of the things that we can do is to establish permission that it's okay to not be okay. We have to normalize not being okay. We cannot expect everyone to be okay all of the time. And don't see these individuals as being fake, as being deceitful, because if we have that approach with them, we run the risk of doing more harm than good. But we want to normalize that it's okay to not be okay. We want to normalize the process that it's okay to go slowly. I tell my clients all the time, it's okay. Baby steps are fine. A baby step is still a step. Remember back in the day, some of y'all might remember playing that game, Mother May I? The person turned around and he said, Mother May I take two baby steps? Mother May I take two giant steps? But even if you took baby steps, you were still getting closer to the target, which was that person down the road. So a baby step is fine as long as we are going in the right direction. And even if we have up and downs, again, healing is not linear, it's fine. We, as counselors in the therapy room, have got to normalize that. Give permission for the person to feel ambivalence. It's okay to feel conflicted, to feel ambivalent about the healing process, to be unsure, to have a level of uncertainty. That's okay. Because guess what? You're still showing up. Hey, you get brownie points for showing up. I give encouragement to my clients so many times for just showing up for the process. Because for many people, that is huge. Never underestimate what it took, the courage it took, the fortitude it took the conversations, the self-reflection that it took for someone to show up in the counseling room. So for those of us who are counselors, we want to commend our clients for actually showing up. And then when they do the work, we commend them for doing the work. We want to encourage them to do the work and we want to commend them for doing the work. What else did we do? There should be a narrative shift. Instead of us, and by us I mean us counselors, focusing on what happened, we look at it from a somatic perspective and ask, well, where do you notice that in your body when you say that? Because sometimes as we are processing something, it's not all up here. Sometimes it shows up in our bodies. And there are times when I see this in my clients, even though I'm with them virtually, they're on a screen. I see a change. I see when they shrink. I see when they hunch their shoulders. I see when they put their head down. I see when there's a grimace on their face like they are experiencing physical pain. I see it. So it's not just up here that we are also processing with our whole being, and that includes our bodies. So we, as counselors, want to move away from and not focus just on what happened, but what do you notice in your body as you say that? What's coming up for you as you're thinking about that? What are you feeling as we are having this conversation? Because that stuff, it shows up. Some might experience as I've had clients say they feel a tightness in their jaw. I've had clients say they feel a physical pain in their chest. I've had clients say they feel like a bubble gut. I've had clients say it feels like pressure on their back. And that's why they kind of hunch their shoulders because they're feeling the pain. So we want to we want to include that in the counseling process as well. Um, so, when I want to get back to my notes, yeah, I want to move away from that. We want to utilize that. We want to normalize uh, functional survival. We want to normalize the process. So, if you recognize that you have engaged in performative healing, if you've seen yourself in any way, shape, or form, listen, help is available. Help is available. Whether you go to counseling, whether you are part of a faith community that is safe, and I'm going to say this, not all faith communities are safe, okay? They're just not. They're just not. But if you are in a faith community that's safe with ministerial staff who can help walk you through the process of healing, help is available. Some people utilize self help books. Maybe you could do that on your own, but sometimes you may need someone to help you process some of the stuff that you are reading in the self-help book. And that could be a counselor, that could be someone that's in your faith community. If you recognize someone with whom you are attached, someone with whom you are in a relationship, whether romantically, familially, uh, friend, coworker, whatever, and if it's someone that you have a close enough relationship with, maybe you can start having those conversations with them, especially when they behave in a performative way one day, and then a couple of days later, they are stressing out over the same thing they said that they were healed from day before yesterday. So there's help available. You know, I I practice through Mending Hearts Behavioral Health and Family Services. Our founder and CEO is none other than one of my favorite people on the planet, Dr. Danita Thompson. Mending Hearts is located in New Jersey. I always forget the town that is in because I'm virtual. I'd know the town if I went to the office more frequently, but I forget the name of the town. But I think it's near Burlington or someplace like that. Um, so yeah, you could come to Mending Hearts. You could find a counseling practice somewhere else. It doesn't have to be with me. It doesn't have to be with Mending Hearts. But if you recognize the need for help and if you want to get help, I'm just here to let you know that help is available. And remember, healing is not linear, healing is not fast, healing is not quick. It is a process that occurs over the course of time. And like they say in some of those rooms, it works when you work it. So I hope that this has been a help to anyone who's watching live or watching later. And again, I want to ask if you have not already done so to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's Marriage Beyond the Breach on YouTube, Marriage Beyond the Breach on Instagram, Marriage Beyond the Breach on Facebook, and Marriage Beyond the Breach on TikTok. So I would appreciate a follow, a like, a share. Any and all of those things are greatly appreciated. And I thank you all for being here. And I thank you all who have made comments, for who have asked questions, because I love it when it's interactive. So coming up for the holidays, for 2 weeks I will not be here, but I will be back on. I don't remember the date, but the first Saturday after whatever New Year's is. It might be the fourth or something like that. I'm gonna take a quick look at my calendar. Um, it is January 4th. Yeah, January 4th. We're going to be back, and based on a request by my sister Jackie and by someone else. They wanted to have a conversation about a movie entitled The Book of Eli. So I want to encourage you all to go watch that movie. It's a great movie with one of my favorite actors, Brother Denzel Washington. Go watch The Book of Eli and join the conversation on January 4th. Thank you all. I appreciate you guys so much. I appreciate that. My boo boo, I'm going to put some of these comments up there. My channel, my daughter-in-law, Rico. I love you, Rico. It's so good to see you and have you here on here tonight. So again, January 4th, we're back. We're going to be discussing the movie The Book of Eli. Watch that movie. I actually saw it on yeah, Denzel. I saw that it's on one of those streaming platforms. I don't know if it's Netflix or Prime, but watch it. And anywho, I pray that everyone will have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. I know this time of year could be challenging for some individuals uh, who have experienced the loss of a loved one, and that person is not here anymore. And one of my prayers is that no one has to spend the holiday alone unless they're choosing to, and not because they have to, and not because they're isolating. So if you know someone that you think might be alone, invite them. Invite them to your family gathering, invite them to your home, invite them out for dinner, invite them for a cocktail hour, but do whatever you can for the people who are around you that you know or suspect might be spending by themselves. Hey, Nicole says she'll be prepared and ready. Thank you, sis. I know you will. Anyway, I'm going to say good night. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.